Hi, I'm Matt Villers, lead hero designer on Heroes of the Storm.
And I'm Careena Kingdom, lead animator for Heroes of the Storm.
All right, guys. So Gizmozord, this is Lords of the Storm, and you know what? The Heroes deep dive may be going on right now, but we're getting ready to dive deep with the lead hero designer and lead animator. So obviously, it's been an exciting weekend. We want to start out with some Orphea questions. First one I have for you is kind of the chicken or the egg. So was Orphea first conceptualized as just a character you wanted to bring into the lore, or was she kind of designed going into that? You guys already knew you wanted to bring her in as a hero.
Got it. So kind of what happened is I want to say back in maybe January, we started talking about this possibility of what would it look like if we did a Nexus-born hero, who sounds really exciting that we could do. You know, we kind of got drawn back to the Ravenlord. You know, he's this cool character. He's kind of snarky. He seems like he'd be really powerful, right? So we thought, okay, this word stuck with us. The Ravenlord's daughter, what would that look like? And then Oscar, who is one of our fantastic concept artists, he got in the room, and he put up this concept of Orphea, and we saw this, and we're like, we have to make this character. Like, this is just too cool. That's pretty much kind of how that process went. Is like we kind of knew we wanted to do a Nexus-born hero. We weren't sure what it looked like until we got in that room with that picture, and then we were sold.
So you knew before, like, the first comic came out where she was introduced into it because you already had the concept?
Yeah, we were kind of like slowly building up that story. We wanted to give her kind of some background so you'd have a chance to know what's going on in the Nexus, who are these big characters, who are the players there. It gives us a chance to tie in a lot more of our events into the story and kind of have those make sense, and then also just kind of build up, like, who is Orphea? Why should we care about her? What is she doing here, right?
Okay, excellent.
Yeah, another quick question on that. So without getting into any real spoilers or anything into the lore, of course, what can you tell us about her magic? Because, you know, the Ravenlord in the cinematic was saying, oh, that's a dead magic. That's beneath me. But then it's also the most awesome thing we've probably ever seen in the game. So, like, what more can you say about that and some background there?
Sure. One of the wonderful things about Orphea is that she is such a wonderful mix of absolute devastating power, where she is in, you know, she jumps into battle and you can lay waste to all your enemies. But at the same time, she has that noble blood in her, and she can just pirouette away out of battle, which from the animation side and art side of things was super, super important to us, because that really allowed us to sort of hone in on where she sits in the Nexus and how she plays it with all the other characters. Did you know?
Yeah, totally. And then kind of from the lore and story side, right, it's basically the story is you've got this relic you see on her back, right? And this kind of holds this ancestral power, essentially. Like, that's what's coming in here is, like, you'll see in the comics, if you look, there's actually several of these relics, and, like, it all represents her family lineage, which is very powerful, right? Like, the Ravenlord he's got the singularity. He's essentially the demigod of his realm, right? So, you know, she's calling on this power of her ancestors, and it's really manifesting as her will, right? Like, you'll hear later on when you see, because I'm sure you're going to watch the recording, right? Lana actually talking about this, and like, depending on who holds that relic, what comes out is different. So in Orphea's case, this is showing kind of what's going on inside, that she's really conflicted and frustrated with, you know, what her father's doing, and kind of that resolve that she's going to do something about it. So that magic that you see coming out of that box, it is her will manifesting and you know, smashing into everything that gets in her way.
So quick follow-up to that. In the comics, we saw only a few abilities of her, and it almost seemed like a purple beam, which would have been different at that time. So has it transformed into this because of what happened at King's Crest, and now she's angry, and so it's changed from, like, this purple light to a lot of things with teeth.
Got it. So if you look closely in the comic, you'll notice that the relic in that case was actually bound up, and she wasn't using it directly. So that was just kind of her own magic that she was throwing out there. Like, she is in and of herself very powerful. Like, you see her floating around, like, just effortlessly carrying this huge thing. Like, that is her power. Like, she is in and of herself, you know, a strong magic user. And then using this relic is a way to enhance that power. And that's what you see when she's fighting in the cinematic with her father.
Okay.
The fourth comic book is coming out very soon, and that has, like, huge amounts of information regarding Orphea and her entire backstory. So definitely check that one out, because it's really cool.
So first of all, that's super awesome. And secondly, just for both of you, kind of on the development side, being first off the Blizzcon hero, and then second off being the first unique Nexus hero, did she have a lot longer development cycle than normal?
So, yeah, there's definitely some extra time that comes in there. There's two things, right? Normally, we make a hero in about 6 to 9 months or so. For the Blizzcon hero, it tends to take a little bit longer. And then you add on to that we're doing this thing where we're exploring a brand new character. Like, we've made, new characters before in the sense of, like, Brightwing, Lieutenant Morales, Blaze, right? But with these heroes, we still knew what their background is, kind of what to expect from them. A fairy dragon's going to do fairy dust and, probably some healing stuff. Firebat's going to do fire. That's a given, right? But Orphea is, like, we saw this box and this cool-looking monster thing, and it was just endless possibilities. So there was a lot of exploration that went into, what does she actually do? What do her powers look like? We could do anything, and that just is a huge, scary place of, like, I'm looking at this blank sheet of paper, and I'm not sure where to start. And really working together as a team, we had to spend time kind of sending ideas back and forth, what sounded really cool, what resonated with us, and that slowly formed into what became Orphea's kit and her powers and how she expresses herself.
Yeah, for the first time, like, because every character we have has like 20 years of Blizzard history that is attached to it, and they're not our characters. They belong to the fans. Like, there's that huge amount of sentimental value that we have to sort of research and cater to. And with Orphea, it was like the first time that, like, it was a developer's dream. Like, the sky was the limit. You have to see the talk today, because, like, at the same time, the sky was the limit, and we had endless possibilities, which we started it early in the year, and it was such an iterative process between design and effects and animation, sound design, hiring a VO actor to play the voice, like, for the first time, because you always know exactly who does the voice of Kel'Thuzad, who does the voice of Thrall. But with Orphea, it's like, there was such a wonderful process that was very unique that we hadn't experienced before, which is why I was so excited about her.
Yeah, and it takes a lot more time to put all that together too.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so not only the development cycle for the hero and the kit and stuff, but her animations are beautiful. It's so flashy, so smooth. So was that also just, I mean, how fun is it to be able to just come up with all these new animations? And
that was incredibly fun. It was such an iterative process from the beginning, because we were bouncing off because at the same time the comic books were being written at the same time as we were developing Orphea, as well as the trailer. And so every single one of us was coming up with new ideas and then seeing what the other person was creating, and we were like just completely bouncing off one another. And one of the really cool things about Orphea was the amount of effort and work that went into her effects. Like, the Chomp character was both animation and the effects department working side by side. Like, Thomas Horwath was the effects artist that did her effects, and Lana Bashinsky was the one that did all of her animations. Completely tanked it from, like, beginning to end, and did an amazing job.
Yeah, you guys have set the bar really high from this point on with those animations. So.
So I want to, right, no pressure.
It's all uphill from here.
Exactly. So anyway, I also wanted to ask specifically about her mobility, because I think she's going to be a really high skill cap hero, generally speaking, and I think the mobility with her Shadow Waltz, the extra step that you take and the dash that comes out of it, is where a lot of that's going to come from. So what was kind of the thought process behind that, and can we expect to see more abilities like that in the future?
So there's two different things I'm going to dive into here. One is that, because of the type of character she is, she has this kind of elegant look to her, right? And we really wanted to capture a little bit of that. Like, there was almost a concept early on of her being kind of a dancer type character. And we didn't go all in on that, but we wanted to have some of that feel in there. So that was part of the inspiration for her. She's using her magic, and she's landing her skill shot, and she's getting to gracefully pirouette away afterwards, right? But on the gameplay side, we put a lot of thought into this as well, because we've gotten, obviously, a lot of feedback from our players about mobility, and we've been thinking about how we can, because mobility is really fun, and how can we keep giving that to heroes, but in a way that feels really good to play with and against. So something we're trying to focus on is conditional mobility, and that's very much the inspiration here with her ability to do that skill shot and to dash away. So
and
basically,
you have to land the skill
exactly,
shot to be able to do it.
There is a cost to it. You have to skillfully land your hit. Enemies have interaction. They can try to dodge it. They can, use invulnerabilities. There's lots of ways that they can avoid that to prevent her from having that mobility. So, yeah, if she's landing it, she gets to move a lot. But if she's not and you were able to prevent it, then you're good. Like, if you're, a Vala or something, you can outplay her with Vault and, avoid that kind of chase that she would otherwise have.
Yeah.
So it's a reward, essentially, instead of just, you just get to move.
Or pirouetting towards you and chomping your face.
Exactly. That's the way I love to use it.
Yep.
Forever.
Yep. So, kind of transitioned a little bit. Now that we've seen her, now that she is here, can we expect to see more of these in the future? And I mean, we were talking right beforehand, and Greg had the great point of like how often, right?
Yeah, because I mean, the door has been opened. Like, you can't close the door now. This game was before kind of like BlizzCon the game, and now, you know, it's our own thing. I mean, it's still kind of BlizzCon the game, but we have our own lore. So what's the kind of cadence going forward you guys are looking for, or if are you not looking for anything, just when it feels right?
I mean, you know, of course you got to ask. I can't, of course, spoil anything, right? I don't want to blow the surprises. What I can tell you is, I'm sorry. Please forgive
I thought
me.
this was an exclusive
I'm
interview.
sorry. But okay, for real though, she's been extremely cool. The reaction has been great. It could totally happen again. No promises here, but you know, we're open to the idea. One thing that I want to get across though is, like, obviously people have brought up it is BlizzCon the game. It's still BlizzCon the game, right? There's other heroes that people are excited about, that I'm excited about, that we want to get in, and that's not something we're going to stop doing. So
Sure. And it's one of, I mean, it's one of those things. We've had 80-ish heroes. One in 80, one in 50, one in even 25. I mean, if you think about that, it's not that often, really. And so I guess kind of moving away, Kevin was talking about higher skill caps. And so we've seen the reworks announced for Sylvanas and for Stitches, and talking about how trying to make those more interesting to play, making Slam more interesting to play. From a gameplay perspective, are you a little worried that we're taking away, or that things will get reworked out of easy player entrance, and keeping the balance between these high skill cap, very fun to play heroes like Orphea, some of the reworks of making some of these heroes a little more interactive or a little more unique or higher potential skill cap, and then making sure that we still have heroes that don't alienate people as well, that they can still get into, play easily, that type of thing.
got it. So I'm going to get on the rework. So I'm going to take it back to Orphea for just a second, since you mentioned her. One of our big goals with Orphea was actually that we wanted to kind of get in this Li-Ming space where her abilities are actually pretty straightforward. They're easy to understand. She feels accessible, but has a lot of that skill cap. As an example, her dance ability, right? One of the key goals for that was for it to feel as natural as possible. So we very deliberately, like, we could have made it so you land the skill shot and then it reactivates the button and you can click it and cast it again. But we built it actually so that when you right click to move after that, you just automatically jump in that direction. So it is this very natural, like, even if you're not actively thinking about it and using that mind share, you still can get some of that benefit. And then as you use her more and you become a more skilled player with her, you can then start to really think about, how do I want to spend this? And then you can use it to do follow-up chomps, to dash sideways for a skill shot, maybe do things you wouldn't normally do with another hero to pull off really cool, fancy plays. So that's totally a thing that we're chasing, to try to keep that goal of, you know, easy to learn and difficult to master. Those, I think, are the best heroes that we can put out there. So when it comes to reworks, that absolutely is something we're keeping in mind. For reworks, we want to both keep, like, what are the core elements of their fantasy and the mechanics that people love. We want to keep those in place. But then also making sure that the people who love those heroes right now can still enjoy them after we make those updates. It's absolutely something we're keeping in mind.
So we have the new role systems that have been announced. Does that, going forward, make it a little easier to decide, like, what a character is going to be? We haven't had a specialist in a while, because I think we knew you guys were wanting to transition away from that. But going forward, like, do you, with that rule set and mindset, is it easier for you while designing the hero to kind of have the direction for it?
Yeah, it absolutely is. It's helpful for us as well. The thing is that back in the day, we set our 4 roles, and they pretty well fit what we were building at the time. But something that, as a designer, you really have to accept is that ultimately your game is what your players make it in terms of how they play. Like, if I say this hero's a tank, and then I give it to you, and you say it's a bruiser, and that's the way it's played by our whole community, like, we have to embrace that, and that's just how it is. Or, you know, make changes that are needed to accomplish that. But ultimately, we've recognized that our game has evolved over the years, and these roles better reflect the way that our players are now playing. And that also can help to inform, like, making sure that as we're making new heroes, that they clearly fit into those roles, and it's easier for players to get right on board with, okay, this is the role that I'm supposed to fill, and it's meeting everyone's expectations.
Also, speaking of big changes, because the role system, yes, that is super awesome. I'm excited for it, especially with what it'll allow for just making things a little more clear, I guess, for players. But this is kind of for both of you, because I know you guys all do play tests all the time. And I know I think the really big thing that is coming out of this BlizzCon, besides new hero, I mean, we knew new hero, yeah, it's awesome, but the big XP changes.
Oh, yeah.
And how laning is going to work, and the way forts and towers and catapults now and stuff. And this is almost very on par with the globe changes and the ammo changes of this last year. Yeah. And so just I kind of wanted to allay fears a little bit, because I know it's big change, and change is scary. And you guys have actually been playtesting this for months. And so I wanted to get you both of your opinion on how this feels. Do you see a lot more level closeness than you did before? And does that still feel good if, say, we're doing really good, but the other team is still within like a level of us or the same level as us, and then we make one tiny mistake at the end of the game and they're already set up to just completely win it back, and the feel, like, does that feel good or not? So I wanted to kind of get you guys' opinions on that, and a little more since you've been playing on it.
Totally. You want to start out and I'll jump in?
Sure. As a Zagara main, I have definitely noticed it a lot. Every time we play test, we all, rush at the chance to play whatever new character that we're working on. And I always miss that opportunity. I always forget where they're positioned in the selection tab. And so I always end up being the balance that we can grade against. And so the new system changes allows us, instead of getting XP from the keep, it's actually in the forts that you take down. And every third wave, you get a catapult down that lane. And what that means is that during huge, like if you take out the garden golem or any kind of boss, your strategy changes and evolves as a result of a lane that is actually exposed. You actually have to, you can either use it to your advantage, or you have to actually look after it and defend it if necessary. So.
Yeah, totally. So the big thing from our perspective was, and we even saw this in our own playtests, is sometimes you get games where you're 3, 4, even 5 levels apart, and it gets to the point where the game is basically over and you're just kind of going through the motions to conclusion, right? And that's not fun on the receiving end or even on the winning end. It's not an enjoyable experience. So we didn't want to eliminate having a lead for skilled play. Like, you should be rewarded for making good plays, for getting to level 10 first, things like that, right? But at the same time, like, the game shouldn't be over until it's actually over, or else, like, the drama's just not there and you're not having a good time. So what we wanted to do is try to bring that in a little bit. So you can still have, 1 level, 2 level gaps if you're playing well. Like, even in our playtests now with these changes, we still see level 10 to level 8 reasonably often. But it's not like, okay, now we're level 12 to level 17, right? Like, that kind of thing isn't happening. So the way we wanted to approach that is, again, as you heard, shifting the experience, kind of pulling it out of those structures. But we still wanted to make sure that it felt rewarding to take a structure. That was a big thing for us, because initially we just pulled the XP out of the structures and we're like, why do I even care about forts anymore, right? So the catapults were very much an attempt to address that. Is I actually get something nice and meaty for taking that fort out. I get a catapult every third wave, and what's cool about that is you can learn the cadence that those catapults come in, and you can start making strategic decisions around that. You can go, okay, there's catapults coming up in top lane. Let's pick a fight in bottom and keep them busy for as long as possible. While that catapult goes in and gets value, gets more walls down, puts some damage into their keep. They have to go deal with it. Then you can go after merc camps. Like, it's a different kind of lead in the sense that it's map control versus experience. So you're still ahead and you still feel like you're ahead. But when it comes time to fight over that objective, you're not so far ahead that there's no chance for them to come back.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. And I assume, and this is not coming on PTR next week, but this is coming soon. And so I assume you guys really want feedback on this, how it feels, all that sort of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Just like with last year's changes, we want to get feedback from our players, and we're happy to continue making adjustments in response to that.
Yeah,
awesome.
Go to the forums. Let us know.
Yes, for sure. And I know we have to get things wrapped up a little bit. So as a kind of the final thing, since you've both been playing Orphea now, tips and tricks for new people, because everybody at BlizzCon is getting her. Everybody who's got a virtual ticket is getting her. It's a pretty big deal. And so there's going to be a lot of Orpheas running around. How to Orphea?
You want to share some thoughts?
Put everything on Chomp on the E ability. Every talent, like
I
the
agree.
first tier, 4th tier, the 7th tier, that is by far the funnest. That's my only advice.
Well, we know what Careena's playstyle is. It is really fun to go in and kind of do that. Just like, I'm smashing you with Chomp. It's great against bruisers. the big thing for me as more of like a mage style player, like I love the Li Mings and the Janas of the world, is I really like playing the style around her Crushing Jaws heroic, where you go in and you try to get this setup where you grab a couple people with it, and as the Crushing Jaws are going at you, throw out the Dread, and you drop down your Q, and you dash in, and just as the Crushing Jaws are hitting and the Dread's exploding, you then also drop down Chomp because you've just dashed in, and it's this just amazingly satisfying combo, and if you can get it right, like, it's magic comes out. But aside from that, really just kind of be mindful of your distance, because each of her abilities has kind of this different threat range, right? She has a long range ability, she's got a medium range ability, she's got a short range ability, so you don't always have to go in for a Chomp. Like, look for your moments, right? But don't be afraid to hold on to it until you find that safe time, because you still have your other abilities to kind of get some work done, build up your trait stacks, you know, get your health in before you go in for the kill.
All right, well, Matt, Careena, thank you all very much. Guys, again, this is Lords of the Storm at BlizzCon, and we'll do it again soon.
Thank you.